achieved.
From a bettor's perspective and a fan's perspective, the outcome of the Robbie Lawler-Ben Askren fight was a difficult one to swallow. I cannot begin to imagine what it must be like to be Robbie Lawler in that scenario, and yet the man handled it with the utmost class and respect. Yes, he was disappointed. Yes, he was upset. But if you go back, and the UFC just recently released a, I think it was the Thrill of Agony and Defeat video, where he was upset, but he recognized that, you know, it wasn't... Herb Dean is a hell of a referee. He made a mistake. He screwed up. Yeah, maybe Robbie's arm did go limp for a moment, and Herb picked up on it, and that's where he was probably right then. But it's one of those things where Robbie Lawler just handled it very well, exceptionally well, and you love that attitude. Like, I was a guy in a situation, up until that point, I'd only lost one fight, nailed almost every one of my major picks I had picked up on, and I felt that if I got Robbie Lawler to win, if Robbie Lawler won that fight, I was in a great spot to really cash in huge that night. We already cashed in significantly, but we could go forward. So I was, you know, it sucked. It sucked seeing him almost destroy him on the mat, knock him out, and then that scenario break down and happen there. And I kept telling the people I was with, this ain't over. This ain't over. Ben Askren takes damage, he comes back, and he's very capable, and boom, he was very capable, and he got the job done. But still, the manner in which Robbie Lawler handled himself, hats off to him. Very impressive to see him to take it in stride. And I enjoyed seeing that type of approach very, very much. And again, when you counter that with other fighters who get upset over the smallest of things not going their way, and then having a huge issue, it's a very two ends of the spectrum. But either way, it was very refreshing to see that Robbie Lawler did it and how he approached that. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming March 9th event, which will take place in Wichita, Kansas. UFC Fight Night 146. All of my main card predictions will be available on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can head over there and check them out later in the week. Now, I am coming off my best show of 2019. At UFC 235, I was an outstanding 10-2. The only two fights I got wrong were Edmund Shabazian defeating Charles Byrd, and of course the aforementioned Lawler loss to Ben Askren. I nailed every other upset correct. I took some flack for taking people like Hannah Cifers, Diego Sanchez, Pedro Munoz, and the new welterweight champion to win their fights. And I took some flack for those fights, and people said, you're picking too many upsets, you're just, throwing, I got emails, people saying you're just throwing darts at a wall and hoping some of them hit. No, that's the way I felt those fights went, and they did go exactly as I expected them. Most of them did, with the exception, I was hoping to see Pedro lock up that submission after knocking him down, but he didn't need to. Either way, it was a great night. We made bank significantly as well. The bet packs kicked ass. My hardcore betting cluster, which focuses on more conservative bets with larger portions up for grabs, 91.7 units won. My HBC, my gold play, came through with 53.85 units won. Every other parlay had one leg wrong. And it came down to very simple stuff like Lawler losing or Jones not getting a TKO finish. Any of those situations come through. If Jones gets a TKO finish, we win a significantly larger amount of cash. Either way, it was a great show. It's 2 shows in a row we've made large bank. And again, we make big money when we win. So that's the way we keep rolling. The bet packs are just $15. If you want to get involved, $15 for one card. Check it out. Or you can subscribe and save yourself anywhere from $15 to $20. Again, check it out in the bet shop at my website, kamikazeoverdrive.net. So we're doing well there. We're hopefully going to parlay that into a continued success. I like that parlay. Parlay into continued success this weekend. We've got a very fun card coming up with lots of good action that I'm very much looking forward to. And again, all of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. But let's get into my first main card prediction. And interestingly enough, before I get into my first prediction, I have noticed, and just noticed right now, the UFC has overhauled and relaunched a brand new looking website. So UFC.com, definitely with a lot of updates from a graphic perspective and layout perspective. I do notice very interesting that at the top, instead of referring to them as fighters, they're referring to them as athletes. And I wonder if that's trying to avoid some of that stigma that people might look at them as cage fighters. And not as the athletes that they really are. So very interesting updates. I'm looking forward to going through the website and seeing what it has to offer. Now, our first fight of the night takes place in the UFC's middleweight division as Tim the Barbarian Boetsch, 21-12-0, takes on Omari Wolverine Akhmedov with a current record of 17 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Now, Boetsch is coming off a submission loss to Antonio Carlos Jr. He is 3-2 over his last 5 fights, with all 3 of his victories coming by knockout. For Akhmedov, he fought Marvin Vettori to a draw. He had won back-to-back decisions before that fight, and the Vettori fight was returned to him to this division, the middleweight division. Now, Tim, it's worth noting, fought recently at light heavyweight. Omari fought the start of his UFC career at welterweight, so both meeting here and now in the middle at 185 pounds. Both men 6 feet tall, 1 inch reach advantage for Tim Boetsch. Omari is the younger man by 6 years. Now, the first thing to look at here is Akhmedov has had some questionable cardio in the past. It's really been his #1 issue. When he fought Sergio Moraes and Zaleski dos Santos, he was stopped in the 3rd round of both those fights, in fights he arguably could have won. Against Marvin Vettori, he fought him to a draw, a fight he did well early, but he was really getting lit up later in that matchup and outworked and clearly tired in the later stages of the fight. Now, his record might not be indicative of this. At 5-0-1 in decisions, you say, well, he's got a good record in longer fights. But if you look a little bit closer, over his last 5 fights to go to the 3rd round, he has just 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. Not exactly a great record. And then when you consider one of those 2 wins was a split decision victory as well, that's concerning. All 4 of his losses as well, he's been finished. So, deeper dive gets you more information. Now for Tim Boetsch, he has had a reputation for his durability. He survived some rocky, rough starts, and he's fought back, and he carries his power deep into fights fairly effectively. On the flip side of that argument, he has been finished in multiple fights. His finished defeats are piling up. 5 losses by submission, 4 losses by knockout, and Omari Akhmedov does hit extremely hard, so certainly there is potential there for him to get himself stopped. Now, where Boetsch has had struggles, he's had issues on the mat. That has been a major concern for him at times. He has been submitted in multiple fights, and he's struggled with his takedown defense, at least early in his career. He seems to have cleaned it up a little bit in recent action. Now, Omari will go for takedowns, and he can pile up some decent volume. Prior to his last fight, he had 12 total takedowns over three fights, so he can go to the mat in fights as well. Now, if Akhmedov can't land takedowns, he relies heavily on big power strikes, heavy-handed hooks, and hard leg low kicks. Now, the thing with them, they can do a lot of damage, they're very powerful, but they also compromise your cardio. And if you're not getting the return you're looking for that offense, it will not, what you risk is not worth the reward you're going to get back. Now, Boetsch, he works very well from the outside. He utilizes a lot of kicks, including a nice front kick down the middle, and not bad movement for a big man. And Tim Boetsch, he also does a lot of work in the clinch very effectively. He throws hard shots in that position, and he can get opponents out of there from that spot if he starts landing. If Omari can't get Tim out of there early in this fight, if he starts to slow down, that's going to open him up to Tim's power game and the fact that Tim can work a little bit more volume, more effectively with his striking, more economical with his offense. I don't think Omari, coming up from welterweight, despite how physical he is, he's going to be able to outmuscle a guy like Tim Boetsch who's very strong. And even if he does in the first round, Tim Boetsch survives, look for Akhmedov to slow down significantly in rounds 2 and 3. I expect to see a very close first round here in the first 5 minutes of this fight. I expect to see Akhmedov start to slow down. I expect to see Tim Boetsch take over in the second half. And my prediction is Tim Boetsch to defeat Omari Akhmedov by TKO. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's lightweight division as Beneil Dariush, 15-4-1, takes on Drew Dober, the record of 20 wins, 8 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, Dober has put together a fairly strong run of late. He's won 5 of his last 6, including 3 consecutive fights. For Dariush, he's coming off his first win in 4 matchups, which included a draw against Evan Dunham, and mixed in as well a pair of knockout defeats. Physically, Dariush 2 inches taller, he'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's actually the younger fighter by a year. Now, what we have here are 2 fighters meeting on vastly different trajectories. Dober, coming into this matchup, is on his way up. He's been toiling around with the lower realm of the division, but he's found his stride, and he seems to be working his way into a little bit of significance. For Dariush, he's a formerly ranked fighter. He's trying to avoid slipping out of significance altogether by putting some wins back on the table. Now, what does Drew Dober do well? First and foremost, he's very durable. He's been in a lot of slugfests, and he's held his own. He's also a capable kickboxer with improving power and volume. When he fought Frank Camacho in a recent victory, he landed 145 significant strikes. He put up 60 significant strikes against John Tuck in a victory as well, and he's picked up recent knockout victories over Josh Berkman and Jason Gonzalez. Now, it's worth noting, despite his striking-based attack, 29 career fights, just 4 wins by knockout. So not exactly a guy who's overwhelming you with his power numbers, but don't sleep on the fact that he can knock you out. He's got pretty good power in his right hand. He throws some hard body and low kicks. He's always up in the balls of his feet. He's always in close range. He's always ready to engage, and you have to like that about Drew Dober. Now, with Dariush suffering a trio of knockouts, there is absolutely legit potential here that Dober could find a home for that big right hand and put him down. Now, for Dariush, he can strike absolutely. He's got decent volume. But certainly he's not going to overwhelm you like a Nick Diaz or like a Dustin Poirier or a Max Holloway. But he's still very capable. I would say he might actually have a slight edge in overall impact to his strikes, but he's not nearly as durable as Drew Dober, and that's certainly a major concern here. Now, we did see Dariush stop James Vick on the feet. He has held his own against multiple fighters on the feet. Even against Edson Barboza before getting knocked out, he looked fairly good. He's got a solid jab. He works in his low kicks fairly effectively. But again, once he's on the feet and trading, it leaves him open to being knocked out. Hence, I expect in this fight, Dariush is going to look for a grappling, pressure-based attack in this matchup. In his last fight, Beneil absolutely smothered his opponent along the cage, leading to 4 takedowns and a solid decision victory. He is a BJJ black belt, 6 wins by submission. He had 3 early in his UFC run. He hasn't submitted anybody since 2015 at UFC 185 when he tapped out Darren Cruikshank. Now, Drew Dober can absolutely go offensive with his wrestling, and that's been one of the new elements that he's added to his attack. Again, fighters recognize that diversity is the key to being successful. We saw Dober land a pair of takedowns against John Tuck. He landed 5 against Scott Holtzman, but he's also struggled defensively. Olivier Aubin-Mercier was able to put him, didn't take him down, but smothered him along the cage and eventually got to a position to pick up the submission victory. Frank Camacho put him down 3 times in that fight. And even Scott Holtzman picked up a pair of takedowns in that back-and-forth matchup. So Dober can struggle if his opponent elects to go that route. Now, as I said, Dober's shown improved power, but he's not been consistent enough to rely on him stopping Dariush. Again, it can happen, but it's a lower percentage outcome. I don't see Dober out-grappling Dariush, which takes away one of the key weapons that's made him more effective in recent bouts. The striking exchanges could be relatively close, but to me, they shouldn't last long. Unless Dober can stop Dariush on the feet early, or if Beneil completely deviates from his grappling strength here and his grappling advantage, he should find success smothering Dober along the cage in the clinch and on the mat with takedowns and pressure. A submission win is certainly possible, but my prediction is Beneil Dariush to defeat Drew Dober by decision. In the UFC's heavyweight division, former WSOF heavyweight champion Blagoy Ivanov, 15th ranked in the division, 16-2-0 with 1 no contest, takes on the returning Big Ben Rothwell with a current record of 36 wins and 10 defeats. Now, as I said, Rothwell's returning after a near 3-year layoff for a failed drug test. He lost to Junior Dos Santos in his last appearance. He had won 4 in a row over some pretty noteworthy opposition, including Brandon Vera, Matt Mitrione, Alistair Overeem, and Josh Barnett. Only one of which still with the promotion. For Ivanov, again, I have a tendency to put an extra syllable in there, which is incorrect. Ivanov had a 5-fight winning streak snapped in his promotional debut in a decision loss to Junior Dos Santos. As I said, he's the former WSOF and Professional Fight League heavyweight champion. He went 6-1 in Bellator as well, so a very impressive run at the highest level outside of the UFC as far as I'm concerned. Now, Ivanov, he's only 5'11", which is very small for a heavyweight. He will be 5 inches shorter than Big Ben. He'll have a 5-inch reach disadvantage. And Ben should come in 15 to 20 pounds heavier, but Blagoy is the younger man by 5 years. Now, Rothwell is coming back off a significant layoff. That's a tough scenario for him. Now, for Ivanov, he's coming in after a debut loss, which the loss is unfortunate, but he should be more comfortable making a second appearance in the UFC. So that scenario certainly favors the Bulgarian, I believe. Yeah, Bulgarian. Now, when you look at Blagoy, what did he do? What were his issues in his debut against Junior? He struggled with the distance against JDS. And that's not uncommon. It wasn't an aberration. That's pretty much why I picked Dos Santos to win that fight, because he also struggled with the distance of longer fighters in the WSOF. He wants to sit back. He wants to counter-strike. He throws a lot of single strikes. He has a big overhand left. He landed a couple times against Junior. He landed a couple big power strikes in that fight, but certainly not enough. And again, he had success in the lower level against opposition like, for example, Sean Jordan, who he was able to knock out by backing up and giving Jordan room, and then when Sean came forward, he landed that counter-strike and put him down. But again, that's not an approach that's going to work against the bigger, more talented fighters at this level. Does Ben Rothwell fall into that category? He's certainly bigger. Is he more talented? I guess we'll find out. Now, Rothwell, what he does exceptionally well is he's incredibly awkward. He utilizes awkward movement and awkward techniques to his benefit. It allows him to set up his offense, and it makes him more difficult to attack from a defensive standpoint. When you look at Ben, he will wait for his moment before throwing offense. He will wait and look to land something huge. He can counter-strike. He's got a beautiful uppercut that we saw him knock Overeem down with a beautiful counter-right uppercut. Very effective technique. He keeps his hands out in front of him, which really disrupts his opponent's timing and throws off their distance. And then against that case of, is he just putting that in my face or is he about to hit me with it? That can be very disruptive and very difficult for a fighter to deal with. When he does push forward, he will move forward behind big flurries with big power, and he can turn your lights out if he lands one big shot. Ben's also very durable. Now, it's not a case that he wants to eat a lot of shots, because he's done this in the past. Eat a lot of shots, not land a lot in return, and it just doesn't work out, but he's still durable. Now, before Rothwell went off on the break, he was fighting with a lot of confidence. He submitted Josh Barnett. He knocked out Alistair Overeem. Those are huge, huge wins. Does he still have that mindset? Does the loss to Junior Santos, does the failed drug test and the prolonged layoff, does it compromise that mindset? It certainly could. Now, again, I said Blagoy didn't impress me in WSOF against lower-level competition. He looked okay in Bellator. And when you look at Ben Rothwell is a veteran. He's not going to fold up. Especially, even if Blagoy pressures him, I don't think we're going to see Rothwell fold up under that pressure. Rothwell does his best work when he's able to dictate the exchanges. Pressure when he wants to, counter when he wants to. And while Ivanov could go to his judo and try and take Rothwell down and take the size factor out of it, I don't expect him to do that. And Rothwell's not an easy guy to take off his feet all the time. Now, mind you, with the layoff, Ben needs to get off to a good start, and I think Ivanov's cautious style and willingness to sit back is going to allow Ben to find his comfort zone early. And I think Ivanov's going to struggle to reach Ben for those counter strikes. He's going to struggle to find a home for them, and when he does, Ben's durability will hold up. This might not be a pretty fight. It most likely will see periods of inactivity, but I think Rothwell's simply going to do more here. He's going to land, he's going to avoid, and my prediction is Ben Rothwell to defeat Blagoy Ivanov by decision. In the UFC's welterweight division, we have a matchup of the Dirty Bird, Tim Means, with a record of 28 wins and 10 losses, taking on the hybrid at Niko Price with a record of 12 wins and 2 defeats, and I believe 1 no contest. UFC.com not showing their records just yet. Now, Tim Means is coming off a first-round TKO victory over Ricky Rainey. He had lost 2 in a row before that, and 3 of his last 4. Now, mind you, he had 2 losses by very controversial split decision, so his record maybe not indicative of how well he has been fighting recently. Now, for Price, he is coming off a disappointing first-round knockout loss to Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He had won 2 consecutive before that, and 4-1 with 1 no contest to start his UFC run. Now, both men are very tall for the division, but Tim Means 2 inches taller. Crazy to believe he fought at 155 pounds, but Niko Price, who's a very long guy as well, will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and he is the younger fighter by 5 years. Now, you look at Niko Price first. He is a gritty and smart fighter. For Tim Means, he has that nasty technical Muay Thai striking and, unexpected power. Now, where do these guys have their greatest issues? Sometimes that's a great way to look at 2 fighters. Now, for Price, he has done a good job of exploiting the gaps in his opponent's area where they struggle. Against George Sullivan and Brandon Thatch, guys that have terrible takedown defense and poor, let's not say terrible, poor takedown and grappling defense, he took them down, he submitted both of them. He recognized the holes and he capitalized. Against Alan Jouban, a guy with a questionable chin, he stayed standing and he knocked him out. Conversely, when he fought Vicente Luque, dangerous on the feet, dangerous on the mat, Niko looked a little bit lost and got finished. Had no real opening to capitalize on there. Against Al Hassan, he never got out of the gates, but Hassan just simply overwhelmed him. And then when you go to his other fights, against Alex Morano, he actually was struggling. I'd say he lost the first round. He was losing the fight until he got that late finish. Similar against Randy Brown, he was holding his own, but still probably getting the worst of it until he got a very obscure finish in that matchup. So you look at Niko Price, there are 3 scenarios. Exploit big gaps for a victory, hang in and get an unexpected finish, or get absolutely blown out of the water. Again, it's not great to categorize each one of his fights, but still you can see some patterns here. Now for Tim Means, his big issues, they're kind of tied together. He has struggled against grappling-heavy centric opponents, grappling-centric opponents. And he also tends to lose close decisions, even fights that he should win. He's been submitted 4 times in his career. He's had multiple fights where he's been taken down on multiple occasions. For example, the perfect storm was against Alex Oliveira. He got taken down 6 times and eventually got submitted. He is 5-5 in decisions, but a 1-2 record in the UFC in fights that go to split decision. And he's had these fights where he's been the better striker, he's thrown better volume, but he just doesn't show enough urgency, doesn't push forward enough. Against Sergio Moraes, he landed 129 significant strikes to 87 and lost a decision, split. Against Bilal Muhammad, he outlanded him 91 to 88, much closer. A lot of people thought he should have got the nod, still lost a decision. That's concerning. On the flip side of things, fighters, in order to hang with him, need to be able to put up big striking volume to deal with Tim Means on the feet, or they need to counteract his offense with takedowns. I would say, in that scenario, the more likely of the 2 for Niko Price is he's going to look for takedowns. He's going to go that route. But Tim Means' takedown defense isn't terrible, and if you're not a top-level grappler and a guy who really is capable of putting him down, there could be some issues there, and that could be a problem for Niko Price. Tim Means, for my money, looked very motivated in his last fight, and he came out looking to put his opponent away. I like to see that. Means is the far better striker here, and I think Niko just gets hit way too much. And I would say Tim Means is a little bit more durable as well. Luque and Morano had success on the feet, so did Randy Brown. I think Tim Means will as well. I think Tim hurts Niko Price, piles up the damage, and my prediction is Tim Means to defeat Niko Price by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's welterweight division as the 14th ranked Elizeu Capoeiro dos Santos, 20 wins and 5 losses, takes on Curtis Millender with a current record of 17 wins and 3 defeats. Now, this is a fantastic, fun fight with big implications. The winner certainly gets a big push up the welterweight rankings, and with a new champion, we're certainly looking for new blood for contenders as well, and the winner of this fight will be in the mix to work their way into that title conversation. Now, Dos Santos comes into this fight having won 6 in a row since a split decision loss to Nicolas Dalby in his debut. He has knocked KO wins in each of his last 2 fights. For Millender, he is 3-0 inside the octagon with a knockout win over Alves in his debut and decision victories over Max Griffin and Siar Bahadurzada in his last 2 fights. Physically, Millender 3 inches taller, he'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and he is the younger fighter by a year. Now, looking at Dos Anjos first, I love the guy. He's a great fighter. I really like watching him fight. He is a durable, hard-nosed guy with a nice mix of function and flashy offense and just a plethora of dangerous techniques that he can put you down with. He uses a lot of movement to set up his spinning attacks, lots of fates and fakes to draw out your offense. And we saw in his last fight, he ended that beautiful flying knee to knock out his opponent. He had that wheel kick that dropped Sean Strickland to put him down. He's a very dangerous fighter. And I really like, one of the things I like, he mixes up his tempo very effectively. He slows down, not a lot of offense, lulls you into a false sense of security, and boom, bursts into this massive outburst of violence that can finish your fight very quickly. Now, when he fought Sean Strickland, who is similar in height and reach to Curtis Millender, he utilized an overhand right quite frequently, and that was kind of his key weapon against a taller Strickland. It's available to him, but he was throwing a lot of 1-2s in that fight, a lot of combinations, and the most of them were coming up short. He was pushing forward and extending himself, trying to reach Strickland with not a lot of success, and he was open to counters. He wasn't landing those offense. It wasn't until he started throwing kicks where he found success. And when you look at some of Dos Santos' other fights, again, he's hard-nosed, he's durable, he's gritty, but he has a tendency to fall behind. Against Max Griffin, he fell behind early in that fight, had to rally late in rounds to get, to really push through and pick up a victory. Against Omari Akhmedov, he needed a late finish to score a victory in that fight. Again, he's a type of fighter he needs big moments to either turn fights in his favor or just simply to win fights, to end them. Now, with Dos Santos, he's not known for his wrestling, but he absolutely could look for it here against a fighter who's got a vulnerability on the mat. We did see him go for a Peruvian necktie in his last fight. He does have 2 career wins by submission. He's landed a couple of takedowns in the UFC, but they tend to be in response to his opponents looking for takedowns. Again, it's a route he could go. I'm not anticipating it. Now, for Millender, as I said, he's had issues on the mat. Max Griffin took him down and won the first round on the floor. Siar had some success, but he waited too long, took too much damage, wasn't nearly as effective as he needed to be. 2 of Millender's 3 losses have come by submission, so there is that significant vulnerability. Now, Millender, prior to this matchup, has fought a trio of opponents that are very similar to Dos Santos, striking first fighters with a small threat of the ground game. And he was able to capitalize, force them to stand, and won the fights as a result. Now, when you look at Millender, just 6 of his 17 wins have come by knockout, which is shocking considering how devastating he has appeared to be in the UFC. Now, part of that is because he doesn't overextend himself, he doesn't go headhunting, he likes to keep his opponent on the outside and pick away at him. If the knockout presents itself, he will pick it up. If it's not there, he's happy to take a decision. That's a good approach to a fighter looking for a long career. Now, one of the nice things with Millender as well, he has a nice variety, not just in offense, but in defensive techniques. And what he'll do, he'll parry strikes, he'll slip strikes, he'll throw over top of your strikes. He mixes it up constantly. Sometimes he's avoiding your offense, sometimes he's countering your offense, sometimes he's avoiding and then countering your offense. It's hard to anticipate, and you're not sure what's coming back your way. And if you're guessing what his defense is, it compromises your ability to be offensive. He has good distance management. He utilizes his kicks, his jabs, and his movement to make it very difficult to attack him and for him to slide in and attack you. He slides in and out of range effectively. He'll switch chances. He's constantly mixing it up. He can also strike going backwards, which is something that if you can master, it makes you that much more effective fighter. And when you consider how aggressive Dos Santos likes to be at times, if he's overextending, coming forward, trying to reach him, and Millender can step back, he's going to land counter strikes. He's going to have him in serious trouble. Now, the left jab of Millender is very effective. It disrupts his opponents. It's as much an offensive tool as it is a defensive tool. He also throws a nice straight right, and I like the way his striking can be very linear and down the pipe and right to the point. He also has that nice teep kick to the knee that he'll utilize very effectively, and it's a beautiful counter to the overhand right. It will slow his opponent down. It'll make them pay every time they throw it. It makes it less effective, and it makes it less likely they will be throwing it, and that's one of the things that Elizeu Dos Santos is going to look for in this fight. I like the high-risk maneuvers that Millender throws, that stepping knee that knocked out Thiago Alves, that wheel kick that he cracked Bahadurzada with, but at the same time, he throws these big flashy techniques. He doesn't overextend himself. He doesn't find himself in a vulnerable position afterwards. He has nice balance and body control. Dos Santos, he's going to struggle to reach Millender in this fight. His tendency to fall behind in matchups is not going to be a good thing here, and it's going to be harder to catch up. He still could knock Millender out, absolutely. Or he could possibly take him down, and that's something worth looking at here. And if he could take him down and win a decision, but I don't like backing fighters who have to go outside of their comfort zone to win a fight, and that's what a takedown-centric attack for Dos Santos would be. I think he's the type of fighter who's going to come out and he's going to want to win this fight on my strengths, but unfortunately for him, Millender is too defensively sound. He has too many offensive weapons. Technically, he is the better fighter. Millender could hurt him and stop him, but I think he's simply going to do more in this fight, and my prediction is Curtis Millender to defeat Elizeu dos Santos by decision. And finally, we move to the main event of the evening in the UFC's heavyweight division as former title challenger and third-ranked The Black Beast Derrick Lewis, 21 wins, 6 losses, and 1 no contest, takes on the former champion Sagano, the 8th-ranked junior dos Santos, with a current record of 20 wins and 5 defeats. Now, Derrick Lewis is coming off a title fight loss to Daniel Cormier, a second-round submission defeat. He had won 3 in a row to secure that opportunity. Junior dos Santos, he has won back-to-back fights since a TKO title fight loss to the former champion Stipe Miocic. He has won 3 of his last 4. Physically, Junior 1 inch taller, a 2-inch reach advantage to Derrick Lewis. Lewis should be 20 to 25 pounds heavier than the Brazilian, and he is the younger fighter by a year. Now, looking at Derrick Lewis first, the man has had a very crazy UFC career. He started his run 3-2, impressive, at the same time losing a couple big fights. He then went on to win 6 consecutive, lost to Mark Hunt, kinda retired, came back, won 3 in a row, rushed into a title shot, lost, and now here we are. And that certainly puts him in that post-title fight letdown scenario that I've been talking about. We just saw it with Cody Garbrandt. In fact, we saw it with Francis Ngannou when he fought Derrick Lewis. It is very difficult for a fighter to reach the peak of contention, a title fight, lose that title fight, and then turn around and just be just as good in the next matchup. Especially when you're facing a fighter who's hungry and looking for their opportunity. And at the same time, Junior dos Santos didn't suffer those ill effects. When he lost to Stipe, he's come back and won 2 straight. So does it impact Derrick Lewis? For Junior, I'd say his experience with having lost title fights and then got back in contention probably helped him to get motivated again. For Derrick Lewis, he might look at this as a one-off. I've got here one time, I might not ever get a shot. That might impact his performance here. Now, you look at Junior dos Santos, he's in a better place here than he has been in a while. He's still a big name in the promotion. He's working towards a future title shot with a couple of wins. With Cain Velasquez out of the picture right now and Stipe not at the top, the door is certainly open for a shot at the championship. And now, even if Stipe reclaims the title, those guys are 1-1 and can certainly headline another pay-per-view. Junior knows he just needs a couple more wins, and he is right there on the cusp of title contention. Now, looking at what they're going to do in the cage, how does Derrick Lewis win this matchup? It's with knockouts. That's how he wins all of his fights, via knockout. 18 of his 21 career victories by knockout, 10 of his 12 UFC victories by knockout. Both of his UFC decision wins against Roy Nelson and the aforementioned Francis Ngannou have been garbage, lackluster performances, not his strength, does not want to go there. Now, Lewis can do damage on the feet, absolutely. We saw him drop Gabriel Gonzaga with strikes along the cage standing. We saw him put down Alexander Volkov on the feet. If he hits you, you are in serious trouble. He throws big power strikes, mixes in some kicks, lots of single strikes while he walks forward. But he's not a technical striker. He's not going to put big combinations on you that's going to put you down. Now, he carries his power very deep into fights very effectively, but he's not nearly as effective on the feet once he slows down. He plods. He's very predictable. For Derrick Lewis to be effective, he needs to be on the mat. He has that massive ground and pound that's almost impossible to survive once he starts unloading it. Now, despite his dependence on ground and pound and the mat to win fights, his takedown numbers are abysmal. 0.49 takedowns per fight at a 23% takedown accuracy rate. So the question is, how does he get fights to the mat? How does he get in this position? Well, he relies on 2 things. Knocking guys down, or opponents failing to take him down, and then him converting those situations and scrambling to a better position on top where he can finish ground and pound. Now you look at Junior dos Santos, 80% takedown defense, one of the best guys at defending takedowns in the division, and he averages less than 0.5 takedowns per fight. So it's going to be hard for Lewis to take him down, and it's going to be hard for him to defend a takedown and get on top of Junior. So most likely, if Lewis gets his fight to the mat, he's going to have to knock Junior dos Santos on the mat, knock him down on the feet and put him to the mat. Certainly a plausible situation. We'll see if it plays out. Now, how does JDS win this matchup? 14 of his 20 career wins have been by knockout, 9 in the UFC, but he is 5-1 when going the distance inside the octagon. JDS showcased in his last fight he's still capable of knocking opponents out. He has power and he has a decent array of tools to deploy it with. Now, he utilizes a very effective left jab both to the head and body. He utilizes kicks to maintain distance, and he will pick away at his opponent with single strikes. He can spend the entire fight bouncing around on the outside, picking his shots, landing some stuff, mixing in some power strikes, lulling his opponent into the, following him, moving forward and chasing him, but not doing much, and Junior simply wins a decision. I like the way JDS is capable of circling out and avoiding that pressure his opponent puts on him. It's difficult to cut him off, but at the same time, Tai Tuivasa did have some success closing that gap and landing some shots along the cage and had him in a little bit of trouble at the end of the first round in that matchup. On the flip side of things, does Derrick Lewis have the striking acumen to close that gap on the feet and to set up his offense? I'm not sure he does. Especially as the fight progresses, he's simply too plodding. He's too predictable. JDS, he landed some good counters against Tai that sent him to the mat, and Lewis has been stopped before, and once he slows down, it opens himself up. Again, I don't like discrediting fighters. I like Derrick Lewis. He's a hell of an entertaining guy. He seems like a great guy. But if you look, again, my job's to figure out who's going to win this fight. And if you look back at his track record, there are certainly some question marks. Beyond the loss to Daniel Cormier, he had the miracle comeback victory over Volkov. He had that brutal fight that he won against Francis Ngannou, the comeback win over Marcin Tybura, the loss to Mark Hunt. He was hurt by Travis Brown early and rallied in that fight. He was behind against Shamil Abdurakhimov and came back in that fight, and he had that brutal decision victory over Roy Nelson. He tends to snatch victory from defeat. That is going to run out, and when you combine those scenarios with the post-title fight letdown scenario and maybe a less than motivated Derrick Lewis, that's not a good thing. Is Lewis still capable of stopping Junior Santos? Abso-fucking-lutely. He could close the distance, rock him on the cage, or get him to the ground and TKO him on the mat. But that window will close, and it will close quickly. Look for JDS to stay light on the feet and move a lot. Force Lewis to chase him down and constantly be turning and swinging and missing. And it's going to slow him down. Those back issues that Derrick Lewis have will pop up, and he will just, again, it'll be that case of, I didn't prepare a little bit enough for this fight. I'm not as motivated. This is frustrating. It's not working out. I'm not able to get Junior down. I don't see an opening in this matchup. Now, again, 5 rounds creates an opportunity where Derrick Lewis can pick up a knockout in the final minute of the fifth round in a fight that Junior has dominated. But still, you don't really want to back and put money on that. You don't want to look at that scenario and say, that's the scenario I'm going to pin my hat to, or whatever, and I'm going to ride that one out. Junior Dos Santos has the power and speed to land and hurt Derrick Lewis in this fight. He also has the technical ability to pick away at him and win a decision without exposing himself to too much damage. Lewis has been knocked out 3 times in the UFC. Earlier in his career, but still knocked out. Once Lewis slows down, Junior's going to hurt him. Again, I wouldn't be shocked to see this fight go the distance, but my prediction is Junior Dos Santos to defeat Derrick Lewis by TKO. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 146. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. My bet packs, we're starting to heat up with 2 huge back-to-back shows. Get on the train. Let's see if we can keep it rolling. I really like some of my picks, including unless I find something in the prelims that's fantastic, one of my number 1 gold plays is going to be on the main card here, and I really, really like it. I'm excited to play it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that fight plays out. These are some good fights, very much good fights for betting, great lines as well, so please check them out. If you want to follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions, you certainly can do that. I'm YouTube, you can follow my YouTube channel. And I'm trying to figure out what else is available out there. Again, my website is easy to find as well. Again, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want to email me, you can do so through my website and contact me and reach out and ask questions. I'm always available to